So, a bouncing ball left to right is all well and good, but what if you have a shape that you want to move along a more organic path that doesn't map very cleanly to linear movement along x and y values? Here's how you might do something like that. So, I have my circle here. I'm going to open up my position property and tell After Effects that I want to animate this. And then I'm going to select where I want this to end up. And I'm actually not going to separate my dimensions here. I'm going to leave these combined. Now, if I want this to move along sort of an organic path, we can actually edit this motion path right here. To do that, we can do that in our composition panel by grabbing the pen tool. When we have our property selected so that you have the dotted lines here, you can add points, which are also keyframes, directly to the path. So you see at those points it's adding keyframes, but because I'm using the pen tool, I can treat this like I would edit any vector shape in another program. So you can see by adding points and adding curves and playing with the Bezier handles, we can get a very interesting path going, and it automatically adds the keyframes there and the object moves along that path. So that's one way to do it. Another way to do it is to copy the path from another layer and paste it into the position of the circle. So how would we do something like that? So I have a path here. If I open up these properties underneath the transform property, or actually in the contents property, underneath the shape, underneath the path, I'm going to select the path property. I'm going to Control C or Command C, or you can come up to Edit Copy. I'm going to delete this position keyframe for just a second in the circle. I'm going to make sure that my position property in the circle is selected. And I'm going to paste that position in there. Now you'll notice it moved it slightly, but it's moving this along that path. So if I scrub through here, you'll see that that path property has moved into the position property of circle, and then I could get rid of this organic path. One last thing I want to show when you do this, and there's a bunch of great videos on this, but sometimes you have an object that you need to turn along with the path as you're moving it. For example, if I have a rectangle, perhaps I want this rectangle to follow along path, but I need it to turn as it's going. We can use the same trick by copying the path property of the shape underneath contents, shape, path, and pasting this into the path property of the rectangle, or the position property of the rectangle, I'm sorry. But this looks a little strange. The way that we fix this is by right-clicking on our layer, underneath Transform, selecting Auto Orient. We want to orient this along the path. And then our rectangle automatically rotates as it moves around the path. One other way, and I'm re-recording this video because somebody made a really good point in the comments on the original version of this, is to use the new Null from Paths feature in After Effects. So let's say that we have our ellipse. Let me give this a color so we can see it. And I'm just going to take off this stroke. So here's our ellipse that we want to move along a path. I'm going to go ahead and on a new shape layer, first I'm going to name this, draw the path that I want this to move on. So we'll just do a similar sort of squiggly line. And so that I can see that a little bit easier, I'm going to give this a stroke, remove the fill. And we want this ellipse to move along this path. So there's a new script that is built into After Effects. I guess it's been quite a few years now, but it makes the animation of this position a little bit easier in you animate it as a percentage along that path, just like you would something like an animator for text or animating a path itself. So we can select this. We go to the path. I'm going to right click on it. Under Keyframe Assistant, we go to Null Tracing Along Path, and this will create a new layer. And in this new layer, underneath the Effect Transform, there is this progress slider. And if we slide this, that null moves perfectly along this path that was created. So we can actually hide this path now so that we don't see it. And then all we need to do is parent the position of this circle to the position property on this new null. So to do that, I'm gonna clean up my layers panel a little bit. I'm gonna come down to my ellipse underneath transform. I'm gonna take the pick whip on the position property, and I'm gonna come up to the position property on the null path transform and parent that there. So you see that the anchor point snaps to exactly the anchor point of that null. And now if I animate this progress line, this will animate perfectly along that path.